back in September.
We started following this story, and the folks at Coding for Veterans headed out just before September the 11th and did a cross-country caravan. And if you've been sort of following the bouncing ball on the show over the last few years, we've talked to them off and on just about some of the initiatives that they've got. And the idea being that what they do is they offer the opportunity for veterans here in Canada and even members of their family who are transitioning from one career to the other, whether it's from the military into, something in the civilian world. They give them the opportunity to take a fairly intense program at the University of Ottawa, and they come out with a certificate of fully educated in coding. And it has provided the opportunity for some of these veterans, well, anyone who's taken the course, to take advantage of job opportunities, and there are lots of them out there, and they're well-paid jobs. So they kind of took their show on the road a few years ago in a limited way. This year they expanded it and did so, touched on communities right across Canada. They began, as I said, sort of that weekend of September the 11th, and they wrapped things up Remembrance Day in Ottawa. Jeff Muslin is the Executive Director of Coding for Veterans. Good morning, Jeff. How are you?
Good morning, Dave.
So how did it go? I mean, you and I kind of talked halfway through, and I know you were sort of dealing with the eastern part of the caravan, and your partner was dealing with the west. All said and done, how did your debrief go after things finished up?
It was a phenomenal success, and it was interesting because we wrapped it up on November 11th, and between the starting point and the end point, we traveled over 18,000 kilometers across Canada, visited over 30-plus communities, interacted with just over 1,000 veterans, and the best number out of all of that was we had just under 300 veterans and spouses apply to our program.
And now, I know I've asked you this several times, and I'm probably stupid just because I can't remember how this actually rolls out. But every time you talk about having them enrolled in a program, is that sort of like a definite start date, for example, as a semester, or is this a rolling program that you can kind of jump into at any point?
Yeah, so there's really 3 different starting points throughout the year, January, May, and September, and the program's delivered 100% online through the University of Ottawa. So when someone enrolls in the program, they're doing it not only because they've released from the military and they're ready to start, say, in January, but they're also doing it in anticipation of releasing at some point in the spring or the fall. And so we allow the veterans in which to pick that. But one of the other interesting things as well, and we discussed this earlier, is we've actually opened this program to Afghan interpreters who've immigrated to Canada and served alongside of our members. And I'm happy to say we now have 2 Afghan interpreters that have enrolled in our program in the outreach that we've done in the media coverage we've gotten. So, it was a success across the board.
Yeah, and it's interesting to me that, the reaction, I remember initially in terms of bringing people from Afghanistan to Canada, and overwhelmingly, I think, Jeff, the sentiment was that we made the promise and we owe them that based on what they did for the Canadians and the NATO troops in Afghanistan. But there will always be people who will say, well, they're coming to this country and they're going to, live off of welfare and social services. And my answer back to them was I pointed to your program and said, no, not really. Here's an opportunity for them to step up and get a great job that right now is being unfilled. But the other part of it is, it's not like you're handing this out. They have to there's criteria that you go through, right?
Oh, absolutely. And to further that point, there's 147,000 IT jobs that are projected to go unfilled in Canada. And so literally we have a 95% placement rate of graduates, veterans from our program. And so these interpreters, that have served alongside are now going to school. And so they still have to meet the same threshold. The only difference is where a veteran tuition is 100% covered by Veterans Affairs Canada. We've gone back to our corporate partners and we've raised money in which to offset the cost of that tuition for these interpreters.
So I was talking to Lisa Taylor. I know you guys have kind of crossed paths at some level because, you know, she, a lot of what she does at Challenge Factory, some of her focus has been on transitioning veterans into the civilian career. And I asked her this question, and I'm going to put to you. You've been doing this a long time. Now, what is it that brought you to, I don't think I've ever asked you this, what is it that brought you to have such an intense commitment to the veterans?
Well, what's interesting is I actually come from the tech sector, and in fact, I also own a software company, so I'm acutely aware of the talent shortage that the industry is facing. And so, you know, coming at it from that perspective, from an industry perspective, I think really gave, you know, just a different look at this. And I've had a number of family members who have served in the military, so I was acutely aware of, you know, the sacrifice and you know, things like that. And when you actually look at it, someone who served in the military, their soft skills like attention to detail, leadership, teamwork, those are the soft skills that, you know, really make for the best employees in the tech sector. And so what's really kind of been a passion of mine now is that as this program has continued to evolve, and you have to remember, we started with 5 people in the program, and now we just have around 200, and that number is increasing based on the, you know, results on this Caravan, is that rarely in life do you have a situation where an idea is really a win-win. So this is not only a win for those that served in the military, which gives them a good career, good paying jobs, but it's also a win for the tech sector, and it's a new source of talent that is desperately needed.
Well, yeah, and I think that's it's interesting that how, and we've talked about this before, the nature of what they bring in terms of soft skill doesn't even translate necessarily to a resume. And we all have, you know, and Lisa and I talked about this yesterday, we all have this sort of bias built in almost in terms of our perception of what a veteran is, never mind who the veteran is. And, you know, breaking that down. When you talk to them out on the Caravan, was there something in that conversation where it was almost as if you had to convince them that they were, I'll use the word worthy, but I mean to that effect that this is a possibility? Did you have to sell to some of them who might have been a little less confident?
Yeah, believe it or not, we did, because what's interesting is a lot of these individuals never thought of a career in IT, or in fact, how do you even start this, right?
Yeah.
You know, what we do is we give them a platform, you know, through our partnership with the University of Ottawa, in which to open up a huge opportunity in a new avenue that they never even considered. And what's interesting, too, is that, you know, one thing that we also learned is that, you know, these men and women go from serving on the battlefield, and we also have cybersecurity as a stream in addition to software development and coding in our program. So literally they go also from serving on the battlefield to now serving in cyberspace. And so it also really resonates with what drew these individuals to go into the military. And so it's almost a continuation of their service, but in a civilian capacity, while at the same time being able to provide for themselves and their family in a good paying, stable job.
Well, I'm glad it was a success. That's the problem with, you know, programs like this. Once you get good at it, Jeff, you can't not do it anymore. So
Exactly.
we'll direct those who are interested in the program to the website. Just look it up on the Google, Coding for Veterans. Jeff, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thanks, Dave. Have a good one.
All right, Jeff Musson. He is the executive director of Coding for Veterans. Somebody in your life, or maybe you, looking for that kind of opportunity, that's where you'll find it.